Hey, welcome everyone to the Archicad User Monthly Webinar for April 2025. My name is Eric Bobrow, and it's my pleasure to meet with you today and show you some interesting things about how Archicad works in practice. And in this case, we're going to be looking at the practice of several Archicad users who have volunteered to share their projects and talk with us about how they use it. And I'll be reviewing these projects mainly for Archicad practices. How do you use Archicad effectively? Um, now, looking here, we've got about 30 people signed in. I'm sure we'll get more. I did have some volunteers, and I'm just looking to see who's here. Paul Adams. Yeah, okay, great. Let's get Paul to the stage if you're ready, hopefully. How you doing, Paul?
Pretty good.
Good. Do you have a webcam by any chance?
Yeah, let's see on your GoToMeeting. Oh, there we are.
Yeah, so I might have to make you a let's see, make you a panelist here. Then you might be able to turn on. Now you're a panelist, you may be able to turn on your webcam. Let's see
Okay,
if we get a glimpse.
I clicked on it. There
Here
we
we go.
are.
Okay, perfect. All right, so let's everybody who's on, just let us know that you can hear us and see our webcams. And right now I just have the Archicad user uh, website up just to set that up here. Let me just see here. All right, so I see Jeff Griffin, and tell us where you're calling in from, and Ian Reed. Okay, made it. And Cinda, nice to have you on the line. All right, so yeah, we're gradually getting a few more people coming in. So Paul, I've got your project up on screen. I'm going to bring it to here. And let's, no, by the way, I see Dean says I cannot hear you, but everybody else is hearing me. So let me just respond to Dean saying uh, audio is fine for everyone else. Check your speakers and audio settings. All right, let's just see that. All right, so Nicole from Berkeley, Kelly from Utah. All right, so Paul, tell us a little bit about this project, and we'll take a look at it.
Okay, this is an existing house in Steamboat Springs, Colorado, and we're going to be putting a second floor on it, basically. And it's in a historic district, and the new zoning means that the existing house totally is not compliant. So we're going through a zoning variance. We've already been through a historic review, and just the nature of this project and most of what I do are these are builder sets of drawings that they're not super custom, that they're meant to be kind of what you need for the permit and what you really need to build it, but not you're expecting people to know how to build their trade. So anyway, and that's what most people are willing to pay for in
Right.
my market. So
Okay.
anyway, that's kind of why it's structured the way it is, and then I'm sure there's some room for improvement you'll find as we go through it, but
Okay.
that
So you said that the second floor, so you have new work on the main level. So what is changing on the main level?
okay. If we zoom out, see the whole floor plan. Okay, all those green areas are new. That we're opening up that front entry porch. Right now, it's enclosed. It happened somewhere after it's not the historical original that we don't think. So the historic committee wanted me to open that up. We're putting a new front door on. We've got a fresh stair to the upstairs. Right now, there's kind of an attic space that's available, but it's a sketchy stair and it's not headroom once you're up there. So anyway, we put a new stair in. We're adding a powder room in the back and redoing the kitchen and laundry area.
Oh, so this is the new stair. All right.
Yeah,
And
everything in green is new.
okay. Now I'm seeing something interesting here where the windows appear to be sticking out of the wall.
Okay, so we've got the core only displayed here for this particular plan view, because
Okay,
I'm
so
only
this says
wanting
new work. This says new work main level,
to,
and we have core only. Okay, so let's just switch this to entire model. Okay, and now we can see, that makes much more sense. Now, is there a reason why the view was set to be core only?
that for the framers, I like to give them just the rough frame dimensions because that's what they're going to work with. If they have to subtract the drywall or the exterior materials, they're going to just make some mistakes and not be able to work it right. So I focus on that here, and then other views I show the full layers, particularly the sections and so forth, that
Okay, so
how it all goes
you don't have
together.
a plan, you don't have a plan view that has, the full uh, composition of the walls. Is that right?
Try the electrical plan. I think I may have done the full,
So where is the electrical plan
under
here?
the electrical and mechanical folder there, and electrical plans and main
We
level.
are on the main level here. So if I double click on main level, then all right, we are seeing the full walls there. Okay, that's certainly fine. If it works for the submissions for approvals and for the trades, then of course that's what counts as long as everybody understands what they're seeing. Now, just in case anyone on an Archicad practice level wants to have both the, let's say, the new work main level here with the core and a similar drawing with all of the wall, all of the full um, model, you can switch this here. Of course, that's manually doing it. And then we can say, I'd like to save current view, and maybe we'll just give it a new name here, and we'll say, well, it is highlighting the new work, main level, and then, full um, model, just whatever we want to call that for distinction. So now, and I can move this. Actually, this is a clone folder, the new work plans. So the clone folder means that it's showing all of the levels with a certain setting. So this clone folder says that it's going to be, actually, it's going to be where's the core structure, entire model. Okay, so the clone folder, it says that in general, the views will have the entire model, but you've made a distinction for the new work main level. And if I want to have the full model, then this would sit outside of that folder, which is not a problem. Now, one of the things that I would also point out is when you double click on new work main level, it's jumping out to fit in window, which is okay, except it's a little annoying when you want to be zoomed in and you want to change views. So one of the things I'll change in my copy of the file is I'll go to the settings and say that I want to ignore the zoom when I open this view. And I'll do the same with this one that's here, just ignore this. Now, what does that mean? It means that if I'm zoomed in on an area like this and I go over to, if I double click on any of these views, you can see how it keeps me in the same location. It doesn't zoom out. And so that can be a real convenience. It doesn't affect what you see on the layout sheet, but it does affect your interfaces, your switching modes while you're zoomed in. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So what else would be interesting to look at here? I guess we have the upper level. So if we go to new work upper level, and again, because this is set to zoom out, it jumps in, to the full extent of that. So all the green stuff is new. Now, how are you getting it to be green? Are you using kind of renovation filter?
Yeah, that's going to be on the renovation filter. That's just turns the new stuff to override.
Yeah, okay. So this is, just, and as I go along, Paul, you know this, but I'm just going to make sure that people who are, not as familiar with all of these things get some guidance. So in the renovation filters, we can choose a new construction that we're going to show existing elements in a certain way, new elements in another way that are not the ultimate, not the simple way. They're going to be color coded, and then we're hiding things that are demolished, because if there are things that are being removed, we're going to hide it. Now, what is the override set at? If I go to graphic override rules, it says that new elements, when they're overridden, when the renovation tag, it says that it's a new element and we set it to override it, we're going to make the foreground pen and the line pen be this green color. So that's what's causing that to happen. So if we were to switch from, and I'll just zoom in on this, if we were to switch from the new construction to plan status, now we see things in whatever you've set them to be in terms of colors. You can't tell what's new or old, but when we switch to new construction, of course, we can see the difference between, well, this is all new, but that's where you're getting the green color, in case anyone was wondering. So what else would be of interest in terms of the second floor here?
Just an aside, if you look at the arrow on that stair, I've got a little patch there because I want it to show most of it, but I don't want that bottom tread. The bottom tread doesn't show because it's underneath the floor. But if I make it visible to see the rest of the stair, I either got to add the floor in, which I didn't really want to do, or turn that layer on, or just I made this little graphic patch, but then it's showing that green outline there that really shouldn't be there. And so if you got a better way to manage that, that might be helpful
Right.
for other people
So,
too.
so you have, let's see, if I hover over this, we can see that I'm on top of the roof, but of course I'm on top of multiple elements. That's what that little pre-selection interface shows, multiple elements. If I hit the tab key, it'll allow me to cycle through other elements, including this fill. So let me select that fill. All right, so this fill here, if I just drag this just to be arbitrary, it's just a, what do you call it? You've got a 25% fill with what would normally be gray, but it's because it's considered new, it is, we got the green color. So we'll just say undo that, move it there. Now I am still seeing the bottom here. So you mentioned that you were covering this up, or you wanted to cover that up. Is that right?
Yeah, I don't want to see that first tread on the second floor because
Right.
it's, and I had just a fill with no boundary and just a opaque airspace over it, and that was working pretty well, but I'm not seeing it here, so I don't know if it disappeared or whether but it brings up a problem I've run into that I'd be curious of your preferred way to handle that
Right.
situation.
Okay. So we're on the new work upper level. And if I go to the settings, it's saying use the floor plan layer combination. So it's showing certain layers, not other ones. Now, you said that you drew a fill to cover this up. Maybe it's just on a layer that's hidden. So how can I figure that out? Here's a nice trick. I have opened the quick selection, I'm sorry, quick layers palette, which is available under window palettes. Where is it? Quick layers, you can see the checkbox. If I select that, it'll turn off. If I select it again, it'll turn back on. Now, one of the nice things about the quick, actually, I accidentally turned that off. Let's turn it back on. This allows you to do various things, and I'll just demonstrate one thing for those of you who haven't used this. This wall is on the interior wall layer. I could say, let's hide the interior wall layer. You can see this all disappears, and I can also undo. So now I can see it again. So it's a quick way to do that. I can also say, hey, I'd like to select just the interior and maybe exterior walls here and say turn everything else off. So now we're seeing just those layers. And of course, I can undo that. We can actually go through multiple steps of hiding different things there. But another option here is to toggle what's visible. So this says, take what's visible, hide it, take the layers that are invisible or hidden and show them. So now, what do we have here? I see this
I think that should be the floor
zone.
slab, I think, or maybe it's just a zone.
Yeah, so I don't actually see, let's see, there's a slab here, and I'm not quite sure where the stair is. Let me just undo back here. Okay, so I'm looking for this area, and I'll just move this sort of right in this area, because what would cover this up? Let me toggle this, and there's nothing in here. There's the slab, there's the zone, and then there's the slab and the zone. So that element that you drew is not.
I must have erased it or something by accident.
You may have. All right. Well, you do have, if I toggle this again, you do have a slab. Oh no, this is I guess a slab that's for your zoning plan. So this has to do with maybe height restrictions or something like that.
Those are just the square footage of the areas to
Okay.
just
All right.
help.
So do you not have a floor slab in this building?
There should be. If we look in section, there's a floor slab.
All right. Well, let's
And
take a look in section and just see, because what I would suggest in general is that you do have a slab in there and that you do make it opaque, but underneath the walls and on top of the stair, or you put the stair behind that slab. Now, otherwise you can just do a fill and cover that up. Now, if you have the stair, our choices in terms of visibility are somewhat limited in terms of we can say, hey, on the relevant story, which is usually the lower story, in this case, the main level, we're going to show part of the stair solid, part of the stair with dashed lines representing being hidden because it's above the cut plane, whereas on above the relevant story, which is this one, it's saying show the whole thing, the options being no break mark or with the break mark, etc. Now, there isn't something here that you can say, hey, I want it to only go down to a certain height. So there isn't that one that says only show down to this step, right? Which is what you're hoping for. But even in that case, really it should be cut off by where the floor is, right? Because that's what
Right.
that's what you're representing, is saying, well, there's a floor here, we're not going to see the stair below it, right? And it's clear enough, we don't need to see it, and it's confusing. Why would you see it, just sort of symbolically, right? So, simplest thing would be, just to draw a fill. So we're going to say here's a fill. I'll make this have no contents, with the background, instead of being transparent, being opaque. This would match the window background. And I'll just draw this sort of roughly here just so we can see the effect. Where now, as I drew it, I didn't pay attention to the fact that it's got show area text turned on. If I turn that off, then, well, let's see. So now it doesn't show that. It was going to say, hey, this is how much space you covered up. Now I can make this display it and say bring to front, and now it's going to be covering up a bunch of things. Now it's interesting, you must have this wall that you've also brought to front, and of course this is not, it shouldn't really be covering that up. If I select this and say display order send backwards, then you see now it's underneath this. It's still not underneath that. We can use this send backwards here. That's a quick way to just click a few times until you can see now the grid line is showing. And now we have the other wall showing here. So it's behind this one. And I don't, let's see, this is, yeah, airspace, it should be there. Now, right now, if I deselect it, we'll see it has an outline. I can go and say, no, I don't want an outline. So now you can't even see it. And of course I could drag this down to here and like that. Now it's behind the wall. I've covered up part of the stair here, so I may want to pull this back to there. So now the walking line continues. Now we don't have an option here of making the walking line show up. In other words, trimming it or putting the arrowhead there, but you could do just a little graphic that would represent the arrowhead. That's what I might consider. But the other thing is, if we have the slab for this, then we would be able to say, well, the slab goes around here, it's supporting this wall, there's an opening there, and we could just bring the slab to show itself. Now let's take a look at your section. And by the way, okay, so Mark says he's available till 4 o'clock. Okay, so one of our presenters is Mark Benner, and he said his time is very limited. He's in Chicago area, and he's available for the next half hour. So what I'm going to do is spend another 5 minutes with you, Paul, and then we'll bring up Mark. So if we look at this here in 3D, one of the things that not everybody knows you can do is you can go to the View menu, go to Elements in 3D View, and say, I would like to do a cutaway. Now, when you activate the cutaway mode, or you just type in Command or Control Y, which is the last letter of cutaway, when you activate that, there are some little icons that show up here. Now, if I hover over this, you can see that it does allow me to, if I let's see, where is that? You can see that there's this, what do you call it? A cutting plane that I can move, and I can do an interactive section, and I can move it to wherever would be useful, and then say, hey, at least for now, finalize it. Now I can move around and look at this. So this is, clearly a section. It is doing it based on an orthogonal view, like the x-axis or the y-axis on the plan. Of course, sometimes you would need to do something parallel to a wall that's not on the axis, but it's a great way to just do a quick visualization. Now we do see here clearly that there is a floor slab, that you've modeled it there. It is on the layer 1 floor slab, which makes sense here. Now, if I open up the settings, it says that the home story is the upper level here, which makes sense, and that it's going to be showing on the home and the 1 story down. Okay, so that means it could show on the story down below if you had this layer turned on. Now, I would think that it's probably not relevant to show this as a floor on the story down below. It's, you might have part of it as a ceiling or something like that, but this particular element, I'm just going to change it and say home story only. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, all right. And of course we can change it at any time. Now, this is on the floor slab level. Let's see, it was also, it's a classification here. It is, it's a slab. Its renovation status is new, so it's part of the new design there. Clearly, you're adding a second floor there. Now, why aren't we seeing it on the new work upper level? So I'm going back here. I can go to the layer dialog, and it says floor finish is showing, floor slab is showing. Okay, so that means we should see that. So let's just say if I go to the slab tool, so I'm sorry, where are we? Why am I not all of a sudden seeing it? Slab here, okay. And I say select all slabs. We can see actually, yeah, there it is. Maybe I was hovering over this area, and now we can see, by the way, this is the cutting plane that I was on. it's visualized because I have that active there. But this slab, if I go and use the option to bring it all the way, let's see, bring it forward, I can bring it forward, and we're not seeing any changes visually. Why? Because there is no cover fill. So a slab and other elements like roofs have the options of being covered with a color or white, or possibly a texture to represent tiles or other materials. In order to do that, you go to floor plan and section, say cover fills. This says parallel 5-inch vertical with a transparent background pen. Now, you must have something in this setting that says don't show certain types of fills. But the key thing here is that it says cover fill background pen is transparent. I'm going to change this and say, no, let's make it white. Now you can see it just covered up some stuff here, there, and cover fill parallel. So is this supposed to be have a 5-inch?
I use that for wood flooring in some views and
Okay.
like my schematic floor plan views. And so there's a model view option that's hiding it. And I'm not sure I've got control of it quite the way I meant to, but
All right, so model view options. So we've got, this is the model view options here. We can look at this and say, hey, right now you've got it set to be high detail markers on. And what are we gonna see? Actually, so it's not model view options. I mean, that is important.
graphic override.
It's graphic overrides that we would look at. So this is high definition. Here's our graphic overrides, and you've got default zones empty, and you've made it so that zone fills are empty, uniform graphic fix. So this has to do here. So this one, now I'm just going to just say that's zone fill, default zones empty. And what if I were to change this to no overrides? Okay, it's still, so the slab is,
Because we just took away the hatch pattern, did we?
well, I didn't change the hatch pattern. I changed the background to be opaque.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Front, okay, it is already to the front. Now, if I were to take, just as a little test here, these things and say, they were brought to the front, let's just send them backward. No, okay, what is going on? Why is this not showing? Okay, do you have, you don't have trace and reference, because sometimes in trace and reference, you can say make fills transparent, make all fills transparent. So I'm a little puzzled why we're seeing this. We've got no overrides. Well, actually, that's the wrong slab there. If I tab, so if I go to the slab tool, okay, where are we? Slab tool. This is the slab for the second floor, and is this one? I might have brought the wrong thing to the front. Okay, now that is there. Let me just drag this. What is
I
that?
think that may be just a stair opening that you got.
There's the stair opening. So this is the slab, and this, so display order bring to front. Okay, if not that, I would just want to see if I were to drag this somewhere else, so we can see what the shape is, and the floor plan and section. Oh, there's no cover fill. So the thing that I was turning on the cover fill was not the right one. So let me just turn on the cover fill. And this is, don't use fill from surface, use airspace with an opaque thing. And then this, it's still, So let me just put it back where it was. Okay, so there's a little bit of a mystery here why it's not being opaque. We've solved the problem with the patch, but the slab for some reason is not. Um, so which one is it? This is the slab.
That should be it.
Yeah, floor slab. Okay, so this floor plan and section is not. Oh, now let's put this on cover fill. Put it on controlling it as airspace, but make the background white there. And this should be able to cover up things below. All right, so I'm a little bit of a mystery here. I'm just going to drag this off to the side. You can see, so that was what was effective. So right now I'm going to have to, I'll just sort of move along and say that didn't quite give us the controls we wanted. And I'd have to consider that when I'm not in a rush. Let's just take a quick look before we switch over to Mark Benner at this section here, because I had noticed when I was looking at this that, you know, what was going on with this stuff here. This is penetrating it, not really clearly delineating that. Where are you at in the sense of these drawings? Are you already submitted and you've done some 2D work, or is this conceptual and you're still working on it?
We're developing the construction drawings. It's in bid right now, and so I need to do some cleanup of some of these details like that. And I've got a roof piece there, and I think I'm not sure why it looks like it's inboard 2 inches. I need to just change the outline, you know, bring that in 2 inches, you know, on all directions, and then probably subtract things out so that I've got the assembly I really meant. I sometimes wait till the last minute to decide how I really want to frame a particular assembly. And so there's these oddities that show up in certain views. The elevations are usually right, but it's wrong here for sure.
Right. Okay. All right. So tell you what, I'll leave this file open. I'm going to switch gears to Mark and introduce Mark on the floor here. So Mark Benner, since he has limited time. So Mark, let me also actually make you a panelist so we can get your webcam on. So Mark, you want to put on your webcam? Okay, well, hopefully.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can. Yeah, do you have a webcam?
I do.
All right. Now, did you send me a file? I'm trying to remember if
I dropped one in Slack, direct message with you in Slack.
Oh, that's right. Okay, I did get that. And what version of Archicad is it in?
27.
Okay, so we'll start up 27. And I don't see your webcam yet. So
I keep saying share, and it just doesn't play nice.
Okay. I mean, I know we've had you on as a guest before, so in general it can work.
Yeah.
So anyway, Mark, you're based in Chicago area, and tell us a little bit about this project that I'm about to open up.
This, yeah, I mean, in north side of Chicago, a little town called Northbrook. This project's in Glenview, Illinois, and and by the way, it's an archive project, so you can just open it up from the archive. This is a partnership with a builder whom I've done a great deal of affordable housing work with. We both volunteer for the same group, and his previous architect kind of dropped the ball, and he was ready to try somebody new, and so that was me.
By the way, your webcam has appeared, and we can
finally came up. Yeah.
Yeah, we can see you in your native habitat.
Indeed.
Yeah. All right.
So he's a very skilled, accomplished builder with a very particular style, and it was a great opportunity for me. You know, I've gotten into my own style and method of work and typical details, And so this was an opportunity to stretch and get a little bit outside of my comfort zone. So it includes a lot of, like we didn't use any steel in this project. So we did some thickened slab footings in the basement. And then the other thing that was unique is we've got these kind of Tudor trim details. So there's kind of a traditional siding, some brick, and then there's a dark section that has this tutoring built in. And I like to model everything and not fall back on line work. And so that was the exercise here.
Whoops. So so these elements here are done with the beam tool, and they are in front of the wall. And then how are you doing the this is a standing seam?
So that's a roof accessory.
Mm-hmm. Roof surfacer.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So we'll as part of my, hosting this, I'll make explanations as we go along because not everybody's used that. There are tools that Graphisoft provides that they call as a group the goodies, and goodies are tools that are useful, maybe not perfect or maybe not completely doing everything that one might want, but they're useful. And so these goodies you can then download from the Graphisoft website. If you go to the help menu, online resources, there's a download area. I'm not sure which one it would be. Archiplus downloads here. Now the goodies include one that is called the surfacer, and the surfacer will allow you to take a roof. Actually, so if we take, if I take this and hide that layer, this is a roof that's being covered by the surface, okay? And when you select that roof, you can go to the design menu, roof extras, and then say, actually, I'm sorry, it's, is it, where is the, it's not, maybe I don't have it loaded in, is the, in 27 is the goodie. So there's a command that says basically, I'd like to add on a surface to this. Right now this has roof maker, but that's actually for the framing of the roof here.
Yeah,
but it
you
would be
find it under design extras and then accessories under the design menu.
Design extras. Okay, I haven't used this for a while. Accessories. Okay, here's roof accessories. And the roof accessories, this one is roof surfacer, and it allows you to create things with standing seam or corrugated sheet or rounded tiles, which are always, the coloring is terrible. You have to adjust it. But Italian tiles, again, coloring is terrible, but it actually will create reasonable looking, tile representations here. So what that does is it creates something based on the geometry of the roof, whatever is the outline and the slope of the roof. And it is a separate element. So if I go back to this and turn that layer back on, we can see the standing seam there. Now you don't have full control, so you might, if you were modeling it more detailed, you might want to make these seams line up, there, so you don't have full control with that, but it is a very quick way to get certain things represented. And if we look at the modeling stuff, did you do these just manually, just placing them in an elevation and then moving them on plan to the right location?
Yeah, I placed them in plan view for the first, and then from either 3D or elevation view, copy or drag a copy, reposition, adjust the dimensions.
So that's the roof. There's the wall. So all right, well, let's just actually go to an elevation. So I'll just take an elevation here. Okay, so this, not sure which elevation. Okay, here's where we were just looking at it. So one of the lovely things is if you model this and you say, hey, I'd like to have it subdivide there, you can do a move, drag a copy, and take this over something like that. And now there's another copy. So you can do that. That was something you couldn't do in Archicad for the longest time, was in an elevation or a section, make new elements. You could adjust elements, but you couldn't drag copies there. All right, so now this is a rendered or at least colored, shaded elevation. Do you typically output like this, or do you have graphic overrides that turn off the color?
I think that must be a legacy graphic override. I usually use the presentation view, which is rendered, shaded
So
rendered.
I went to elevations just in the project map. If I go to the view map here and we go to elevations clone, and which one was this? This is west. So if I go to here, there we go. So this is set up with a graphic override that turns off all of the colors. If we go to the presentations one, so where are we going?
Same folder, bottom element of the same
Oh,
folder.
okay, this one. Yeah, okay, so this one here. And this one is simpler. So this is a different elevation. So as a note, Mark is using master template. Master template, by the way, I just finished up getting version 28 ready for release. So if any of you have been waiting for that, you can now download it, you can order it. But in this, we have elevations that are intended for construction documents, and we have one for presentation. And this one, normally we would go to the elevation settings and say that the model appearance in this particular marker should have, well, it says texture fill. So
Yeah, mine is showing up on my end with textures.
When you bring up this particular model view here, okay.
Yes, P05, yes.
Yeah, so this is no, okay, this is elevations plane. Let's just say no overrides. There it is.
Here it is.
Okay, so this particular view, if I go to the settings, it had a graphic override that says make them plain. If I switch this to no overrides or one of the other ones, it doesn't remove the shading or things like that, then this will work. So now when I double click on this, it's got the rendered elevation. Now, one of the issues, the plane elevation here, if you have it rendered with the textures, there's no way to switch between modes that, to turn off that texture and leave line work on. So in master template, we have two versions that you can choose whether you need both of them, but one would allow you to have the elevations with shadows and line work, or very simple, if I go to this and say, I want elevations plane, you can see very clean result here. So this allows you to have different versions of it. The version that is here has the shadow, whereas this is actually a different marker. This is a marker placed in a similar position, looking at the building with different settings, saying, "Hey, put textures on there." So,
and by the way, you're browsing the construction document set. If you scroll up to the top, you'll find the schematic design presentation set, and that has the proper settings.
okay, so presentation elevations here.
Yeah.
Okay, so
this one has some shading and some background trees and.
There we go. Okay, and so for those of you who are maybe less familiar, this is looking at the whole field of view, or let's say just an arbitrary one. On the outline here, these two lines are saying how far out it's analyzing the model. In other words, the site might go out further, but we're cutting it off here. And these, of course, these graphics of the trees, etc., are 2D. Now, this being white and this being gray is a visual guide to that. When you place this on a sheet, you can crop it anywhere you like. And so we can see, what do we have on the sheets here? So this would be an elevation. So we have architectural, exterior elevations, and this was the west elevation here. Oh, it's updating there. Okay. So these are the construction document ones, and you have a presentation one.
Yes, the folder above is presentation plans.
Folder,
Near the top.
presentation plans. Okay, there we go. Okay. So here, this is our west elevation there. Okay. So this, it would go out as far as the printing device would handle, or as far out as the boundary of the white paper if you say this is a PDF.
Mhm.
And of course, looks beautiful. It represents the design in a with a little bit more well, nuance, well, just textured and rendered. What else would be useful to take a look at here? And I'm open to questions, so please, we've got 40 odd people logged in. If you have a question on Mark's work or something about what we're doing in the Archicad file, I'm happy to address them. So Mark, what else would you think would be good to check? Do you want to, would sections, let's say take a section you have in the tab. So we've got, you're doing the stem wall and the footing as separate elements. Do you do that, always do that, or do you use complex profiles for some of them?
I have occasionally done complex profiles, but I think I just feel more comfortable with breaking it into two elements and a little more control how the foundation and the footing are illustrated.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The slab of the garage, I make that with a roof.
So this is a roof element, and that has a slope for drainage.
Yeah.
Okay. And what's this line here? Okay, that's the wall, and what's in between? So this is another piece of wall that we're seeing through there.
Yeah, so we have a joist ledge in order to keep the first floor deck near to the surface, the grade of the outside. There's a full width foundation, and then it skinnies up to a joist ledge. And so you were highlighting the little 4-inch chunk of concrete that's the joist ledge.
Okay. All right. Now, just for, again, always trying to bring out some useful nuances here. The wall is going from, well, it's actually below the reference line of this, what you called out the first floor in this case, but it's going from floor to floor, and it is being interrupted by this slab, which has, of course, the finished floor, and it has the space for the framing, and it has the drywall ceiling here. Now this is going out to, you've got it set to go out to the cladding, or, actually it's sort of partway through this, but it's being interrupted by the wall. And the reason why, just for, again, for clarity, is these things are made up of skins. Each skin represents a building material, like an insulated frame space, or this supporting the joists there. And each one of them is controlled by the building materials. So when I have these things selected, we can see in green the ones that are in active use. Now each one of these, like wood framing, has a number. This says 650. That's a higher priority than the masonry, which is 550, and a much higher priority than, let's say, gypsum board, which is down at 300. So whatever is the highest priority will stick through. So this wood sheathing actually is the strongest one, 960, and that's going to take priority over all of the other ones here. And in fact, it's pretty much the most, the strongest element known to man, or at least in this file, other than a special purpose ones, which the solid element operators would be used typically for just cutting things off, and you say this one has absolute priority. Anyway, that's what's causing this to stop when it hits these two pieces, and of course for the vertical framing here to stop when it meets this one. But the ceiling, drywall cuts off there. So that's how the section is being generated and where the controls are. If you change the building materials that you're using or the settings of the priorities, then you can get different intersections. What else would be good to look at in this section?
In this section,
All right, so we have, this is, you know, sort of these two things are passing through each other. This is a slab ceiling, and it's made out of, you know, particular, so this is your company initials here, and this is, you know, composite there. This one is another one, and it looks like this and this have the same priority or the same building material. Now, if we wanted to, obviously there's some complexity with how we join, but if you wanted just a cleaner representation, just again as a best practice thing, you could do a quick, in terms of a schematic design thing, you could use the solid element operations here and say, and I know you know this, but I'm just explaining, if I take this element and say it's going to be the target, and this element, it's going to be the operator, and then do a subtraction, you can see now we have a clean line, a clean transition. Now we're not seeing the line between them because they are the same type of element. And if you did want to have a line for visual clarity, you could either draw a line or you could make them out of different building materials. And I'll just demonstrate that very quickly. I'm going to undo the subtraction and say, what if this slab was, let's see, so if I say, no, it says select, so select this, come on now, I've got it selected. Why am I not seeing edit composite?
oh, you got a dimension selected as well.
Oh, do I? Okay, because I undid things. There we go. So now I can say edit selected composite profile. So this is the main thing. It says wood structural. Now, just for a quick demonstration, if I go to the options, building materials, and I find the wood structural. So we just type in here, struct up here, wood structural. And if I wanted to, I could say duplicate this. And I could just leave the number here because I'm not going to worry about it, but you could have it wood structural alternate or wood structural 2 or anything like that.
Horizontal,
now, yeah, or horizontal. It's that to do that. That's a good one. Horizontal. All right, so now this exists and they're both exactly the same. They both have the same priority, although I could make one lower than the other. So if I do this and then say I want to edit this and say that this piece is not wood structural, but it is going to be wood structural horizontal there. Now, we don't see any change here because they both have the same priority, but now if I were to make this the target and make this the operator and subtract, we're going to see a nice clean line. Now I can also, yeah, so also I could say, you know what, let's go in here and just adjust priorities. So I'm just selecting it so it's easy to see under the options building materials, the two that are selected. Actually, there's also the gypsum and other things, but this horizontal one, what if I move this up? Actually, if I just take this and make this 510 or something like that. Whoops, I didn't mean to hit enter. Come on out. So building materials, we have wood structural horizontal, 510, wood structural, 512. And this should, if I did it correctly, this is wood structural horizontal, and this is wood structural. So this should be a higher priority. Why is this not intersecting here? I guess
I wonder if it's the layers. There may be a priority to the
Oh, it
layer.
has to do with walls and slabs automatically look to each other if they're on compatible layers, but roofs, you have to go to the design menu, you go to connect, and you say merge elements or trim, one or the other. But if I say merge elements here, actually, let's see, trimming. Well, let's see what happens with merge elements. You can see it's now analyzing that. Although this might have some side effects, like if you moved one, it might move the other. I'm not quite sure.
Right.
So undo that. So what we could do is just go now and say connect trim elements. And it says, do you want to use this roof that's in the current selection? I say yes, absolutely. And now we have this going on here. So just some side notes. So I do see some notes here. Why are the stairs in red dashed? Tom asks. So
On the elevation?
so were they in? Oh, okay. So we have this here.
Yeah, that was something we wanted to illustrate where the stair structure was relative to the windows. So to create that, I just hid in this view, I hid the exterior wall layer, and then with a polyline traced the stair profile. And then once the wall was restored, the exterior wall was turned back on, then we had that dashed reference showing where the structure of the stairs were.
Okay, very cool. Yeah, it's a creative way to just make sure it's exactly in the right place in relationship to this view, but it's a 2D element. Obviously, if the stair were moved or redesigned, you'd have to redo that again.
Right.
Okay. So Cinda says, the exterior materials shown graphically as a skin or actual Archicad material selection. So what's happening is, okay, so let me go to the actual view. So if I select this is a view, I'm going to say open source view, or I'm sorry, this is on a layout sheet. Now I'll say open the source view here. And if I select this wall, okay, the wall has no override. Okay, so it says that it's going to use whatever this was made of, and you have MEBA brick insulated to whatever. So did you design that wall composite as, you say, edit this here, masonry non-structural. All right, so basically this is designed, as the insulated brick. The building material is masonry non-structural. That building material, if we go to options, building material to, let's see, masonry non-structural, it says it's using a surface called brick beige sand 27, and that's what we're seeing here. We see it in a 3D view, and we see it in an elevation if you have textures turned on in the elevation. So it is part of the actual wall definition that if it's using masonry non-structural, at least in this file, it has this appearance. So hopefully that answers Cinda's question. Let me just open up Cinda's line. You two should know each other, of course.
Indeed.
Both being in Chicago and part of the master.
Hey, Mark. So did you select that brick pattern from somewhere because that is the pattern and the color that you wanted to show there? And then you just applied it to that material?
Yeah, that was a close approximation to what the builder selected for the house. Not exactly, but pretty close. And that's a texture or a surface that's available to add on through the when you add in the surfaces. There's a catalog of available additional textures like that brick beige.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, so the surface here, we can see all of the brick ones when I type in brick. It's based on this image here. If you were to say, hey, you know what? Actually, it's not this. It's a little different color. Of course, if I change it now, anything that's drawn with that, like this other wall, would change. But let's just see, I go in to that little browse a folder button, and you can see these are all different types of images. Now, some of them are very specific for creating the bump or the representation of the indentations there. Others are going to be actually more the complete sort of quick rendition of it. So this one that has the OPT is the one that would be the more naturalistic preview, whereas the other ones like this one, this is actually what's called a bump map, and it's saying, hey, this black area is in. And so when Archicad renders, it will, in certain contexts, give you a recess in those areas. But the OPT ones in the library are the ones that look the most natural, and that's what you would use if you were just selecting it. And you also can say, I want to, I guess, don't have a new surface there. That's interesting. Wonder why I can't. It says editable 0.
I wonder if it's because it's a archive file.
It may be, yeah, or maybe because I'm in this mode of, the elevation. So, okay, so I know you said that you were only available till 4, and it's just a little bit after, but there are some other questions. Lennox says, please show how to align the roofing. Okay, so I mentioned that. Is that something that you have done with the surfacer, or do you know how to do it?
I have from time to time. It wasn't a priority here, or else I would have spent whatever time that was needed. But
okay. So here's something that I would consider. I don't know that it would work with the surfacer, but actually let's just do it with the brick right now, just to show, because I know this at least will represent it. Now you can see actually these are not quite working. If you look at them, the bricks are not working here. So if I select this wall and go to the document, creative imaging, align 3D texture, set origin, which is, I hate that it's so buried in there, but you can say set origin. And I'm just going to click somewhere on this wall and you'll see the texture move. Okay, I didn't get it quite right, but it moved. So you basically can set it. Let me try one more. Document, creative imaging, align 3D texture, set origin. I go to maybe this corner. Okay, now you can see it is nicely lined up. Now, maybe because this wall starts down at a lower level.
I think you discovered an anomaly. It's not supposed to go down below the surface. So
yeah,
this is a good opportunity to edit in 3D and bring it back up to sit on top of the foundation.
Right. Okay. Anyway, so that's one thing. That's for textures, but the roof surfacer, one reason that they call it a goodie is because you probably don't have controls over that. Let's just see. I don't think that this is considered a surface that you can work with. Document, creative imaging, align 3D texture. There's no set origin because there is no texture in here. These are elements that are controlled by an object. The object here, I don't know that you have any.
I think there is an origin reset or an offset.
Yeah, all parameters here, standing seam spacing, so you can change it, for how much they repeat. Distance from the roof, this would be vertical, I think.
Yeah, that's why I don't get the Moira pattern overlap.
Pattern, where am I seeing?
No, that 1/8 inch distance from roof. If you set it to 0, then the surfacer material and the material of the skin of the roof create a conflict, and they flash Moira pattern.
This makes that surface sit on top of the roof.
Right.
But we don't have something that says start the ribs at a certain place.
Yeah, I don't see that.
Yeah. Seam joint distance. So this is seam spacing 1 foot and this joint distance. There's
a vertical joint that goes between the ribs, and I usually disable that.
All right. Yeah. So like that, basically, the ribs go up to a certain point and then they start over with a joint.
Yeah, I said so it's actually a horizontal rib between the ribs, or horizontal joint between the ribs.
Yeah. Now, so this is not going to give you that option. What I'd recommend for if you wanted to make it have more control, is use the curtain wall tool, is an interesting one. So very briefly, you know how a curtain wall says, all right, we have divisions, and then there's panels, and there's glazing, there's possibly some doors, other things in between. There's basically some sort of a grid, not necessarily evenly spaced, because you could have 2 of 4 feet and then 1 of 1 foot or something like that. Those can be moved around, and they can tilt, and they can be made regular, like what we see in a standing seam. And so then essentially the joints between what would be curtain wall pieces could be shaped to be like a standing seam piece. The connecting pieces are the panels, and they can be made very thin, just like the metal. So I've done that before, and you can then adjust it. So with a little bit of finesse, you can get these to look quite similarly, but have full control. But the roof surfacer is great in the sense that you can just say, let's put standing seam on it. Oh, well, looks pretty good. Or, let's put it on and let's make it a little wider spacing or different color, very quick. So anyhow, so let's see. Tom Marconis, was asking about the elevation. And Tom Pike says, for 3D battens on board and batten siding, I've been trying a battens thing. So do we have batten? Oh, so this would be these things here?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So Tom Pike, who's going to be presenting something else, I'm going to open up his line so he can tune in. And I know, Mark, you have to go, or you should go, whatever.
Got a couple minutes, but yeah, I'd love to hear Tom's comments.
Yeah, so Tom here. So let me. Now, Tom, unfortunately, you're logged in as a web, not using the GoToMeeting app or GoToWebinar app, so I can't make you a presenter, but we can, and I don't think you can see your webcam, but you can talk.
Okay, well, and maybe in the meantime, after this, I can just try and get into the app instead of the browser. So on the board and batten, I oftentimes will put like forced ones, and then if the window moves, of course, you move individual battens. But if you have a large wall, you can use this GSM batten tool, and it's pretty nice in the way it works.
So where did you get that? You got it from James Murray of onland.info. Is that available for free?
Yeah, I've been using it now for maybe a couple months.
Okay, so on land, this is I think my understanding it's a passion project for James Murray. In other words, he loves Archicad. He develops a bunch of things to use it better for his firm, and he shares, ideas, methods, etc., and some tools. So onland.info. Now, if I search for, battens here, I haven't been looking at this, so I'm not sure what's going to come up. It's blank screen, not really doing a great job of finding it. Oh, there's a 1 here, so I don't know what that is there. Categories, so workflow, all sorts of cool stuff.
Maybe it's an Archicad one up there at the top. There's 120, 120
Well, there's
items.
120 articles about Archicad, here, Archicad installation, up to Archicad 25, 3 years ago. So,
Yeah.
So I'm not sure, but workflow, GDL technical standards, yeah. So anyway, who knows if they have tools, if they have download. GDL, here's GDL. Here's a pen, 3D hinge lines. Yeah, so he's created some things. Maybe we'd find it in the in this one here. Slabifying lines, interesting. Ceiling code, model operator, very cool. So I have run into him before. I've never met him, but he does some really good work. So if you can find that link, Tom, it would be interesting. So you can basically have repetitive battens, and you can then put in some things that would cut out openings. So
Yes, you can. Now, if you have multiple openings, and I think it limits you to 8, and you can kind of specify the sizes and then move them around on screens by, clicking on their borders and moving them. Now I've had it where I might have more openings or something, and I might have to split it up into 2 of them so that I can have additional openings if I had a large surface.
Right. Okay.
I'll look
So
for and I'll also switch over to the app version of this webinar so I can present later.
So I do see Jacek Leszewicz just posted, one can select adjacent roof surface and create a copy and trim to fit. So I'm not sure if I've opened up his line, but I can imagine that roof surfacer, which we were maybe finding limiting here, that this surface is associated with a particular roof. And if you had the roof in a different position, the ribs would start in a different place. So you might find, if you created another copy of the roof that specifically, had, maybe it stuck out, and then what do you call it? You could control where the origin is. And then you hide that other copy of the roof. That would be, he says, you can select an adjacent roof surface and create a copy and trim to fit. So the roof, and Morgan says the roof goodie can be moved relative to the surface by moving the roof's object origin relative to the surface. The roof's object origin. Okay, so let me open up Morgan's line. So he's under C Morgan. C. All right. So very cool. So Mark, I know you have to run. Is there anything else in this file that is particularly, of interest, or you're proud of, or just would be worth checking?
I think, well, I do this with all my projects, but I use a 3D electrical symbol for switches, outlets, so that those populate in the 3D model as well. So you're seeing some of those in that cutaway.
Okay, I just did a cutaway just to see what you've got in terms of the level of modeling. Here we can see just where the roof is returning in here. So it's very simple volumes there. Okay, and we're not seeing the ceiling layer right now. I do have, we're in a, no, we're in model building and site. I turned that on manually there. So do you not draw the ceiling, or was there?
No, I do. It should be available in the floor plan layer set.
Well, so this is model building and site.
So use the condoc floor plan.
Okay. Well, so in terms of master template, we have all of these condoc layers, or layer combinations. Then we have model. So apparently the building and site is not being told to turn on the ceiling. So why am I not seeing
A slab ceiling?
A slab ceiling is on. Okay.
Well, that's odd.
Okay. Let's take a look at a section where we would, let's see. So these are presentation ones here. Section. So any particular one?
No, not really. Oh, I could see it in the background. Something was cutting it away.
So
that is very odd. I don't know what happened. Because it's there on the left.
Okay, here is something that is ceiling in this area.
Yeah.
So, okay. In any event, I'm not sure what was going on with the 3D, and it does appear that the ceiling layer would be on. Yeah, have not. Yeah. Okay. All right. So it looks like you're not. You've got good clean representations here. I'm not seeing the framing conditions being represented. Is this something that you do in 2D?
The ceiling?
Well, you know, just how all, well, so let's take a different section here.
I think it's there. You can see it kind of sawtooth in the background, but that's
Okay.
a slab ceiling.
Yeah, okay, all right. Okay, so is there, obviously, we're not going to be able to spend any more time. You have to go. What are you doing with this? You're doing it with an object, the gutter. So this is
Yeah.
a gutter object. This is a complex profile.
Yep.
That you can just run along there.
And it's adjustable for height and depth.
Okay, and then this is coming up here, and what's going on in between that? Is that, should this normally go up to, you know, I'll just sort of test it if I say stretch this up to you know, here?
Typically, my ceiling would bridge across. I stop it at the inside face of the drywall. So that's a pre-cut stud height as it was originally drawn. And then the ceiling would extend across. I don't want to mess around with where it's gonna, because sometimes it pokes through the top of the roof. So I just usually stop it at the inside face of the drywall, and I live with the inaccuracy of that detail.
Okay, all right. What is this? This is a beam going across there. Okay, so you're not doing any framing within the walls in terms of this level of detail. Do you have wall sections where you're showing that?
The actual stud layout? No, I've done that for my affordable housing projects because we use that to create the wall plates, but not for these projects. We just don't get into that detail.
Right. Okay. Oh, so Tom just shared the link to the battens object, so he tracked that down. So I'm just going to send it to everybody here. And Cinda says, Archicad goals, Mark, color me jealous. I'll get there someday. Okay. All right.
Call me anytime.
All right. Yeah. All right, Mark, anything else
Thank
before
you.
you have to run?
I think that covers all I wanted to show, but thank you.
Okay, well, thanks for sharing that. And, you know, it was a little bit of a hopscotch around and different things, but certainly good to see the model. Just take another quick look outside here. So this is, as I had done before, a cutaway that's being done with the cutaway option here. You can turn that on or off by hitting Command Y. You can see how
that view also shows if I have the footprint of the adjacent houses, I usually model those in a thick slab glass, so I get some representation of context.
Right. Okay.
It's not cool. Distracting.
Yeah, I'm just rotating this around. So the cutaway that I was just doing, I can turn on and off that way, and I can also move it by bringing this to a new position and see that. And then, of course, I can just turn it off by hitting the Command Y or Control Y there. Okay, and in terms of your landscaping here, now, do you take this into twin motion?
I do. Yeah, and there was a couple of there is a twin motion animation that I dropped into Slack if you wanted to illustrate that as well. So this one was rendered animated in twin motion.
Okay. So that is, well, actually, I downloaded. Did you? Oh, here I see you put in something here. So if we take this and make it bigger. Okay.
So this was early on. We didn't have everything modeled at the time, but this showed essentially the concept that we were pursuing.
Right. Okay. So I don't know how well it's coming across in the webinar. It's very smooth transition here. So that's all done in twin motion. So and then we have.
That's an Archicad rendering.
Okay. All right. So you can see the Archicad tree is just a cutout. You can see the flat nature of it, but at a glance, it looks reasonably natural.
Mhm.
Whereas this, well, actually, you don't have any landscaping in this one.
No,
Right, okay. But you could, Twin Motion has great trees, you know, and they do look much more natural. So,
they do indeed.
okay. All right, well, thanks for sharing that. So
Thank you.
we'll move on and I'll let you go.
Thanks so much. Have a good rest of the session.
Yeah, pleasure. Glad you could join us. All right, so Morgan, you had shared something and I opened up your line.
Yeah. Just to get those goodies to the roof goodie to move, you need to like show the um that little roof origin doodad under view.
Okay, so let's see if I'm gonna hide the surfacer. So now I can and let
Yeah.
me turn off the cutaway here. So now I can select let's see.
So if it's not showing, then you have to go
Say
up
that
into
one.
view and show the.
So why am I not able to select this here? Must be something in the way. Let me just zoom out. Okay, I've got, okay, there are the landscaping elements are blocking it. So let me hide those. Okay, and now, all right, so here's the raw roof that's underneath. And you're saying that this is, does it
Yeah.
have to do with this thing here?
Yep. That's the magic solution.
Ah, there we go. Interesting. All right. So just not everybody knows or understands this. When you draw a roof manually, you're going to click on 2 points in space or on the plan to say, oh, it's the plate line is parallel to this line in space. And then you either magic wand or trace or draft an outline for that polygon shape that we've got. Or you create something and then you cut it afterward. But this shape here could be any length as far as the roof itself is concerned. In other words, it could be short, it could be long. It's often like right up at the edge of the roof or right underneath the supporting part of the roof, the plate line. Now, if we turn this layer, let's see, undo here. Okay, so now this layer is visible. You're saying that if I take this and it's moving that element, let's see, is that, no, that's, no, okay, so maybe I have to do it on the plan.
Yeah, you have to like take those the roof polygon points and slide them around
Okay, so
and
here's
then move it
what
back
we're
into
looking at
place.
here. So if I were to, let's just take a look back in 3D and say, all right, so this is a certain distance away, and I'd like to move it to the, to my left, which would be down here. So if I take this point and extend it, let me just take it down sort of an arbitrary amount, and then go to 3D. I didn't see a change there. Is that what you're talking about though?
Yeah, I think you have to move the actual outline of the roof element and
Okay,
then
so let
jog
me
it
undo.
back into place, or
Oh,
you might have to regenerate the goodie
oh, okay. So, all right,
sometimes.
well,
Yeah.
let's see. If I take this um, down to there, and I'll drag the roof um, down to here, and then drag this back to there. All right, so now the roof is back in the same position, but it has moved around, and so will this? Don't see a change there, but you're saying that this should. Now, if we were to change the outline of the roof, I guess the
Yeah, you change the outline. You might have to regenerate the goodie from the bare roof element. That's another thing sometimes that has to be done.
Okay, so this is the roof here. So if I take, let's say this and then move it, so now it's moved a couple of times. I didn't undo, I just moved it. Will it, if we go to 3D, no, it's still not going. So I might have to delete this and resurface it.
Right.
Okay, if I select this and so interesting. I can't move that. Yeah. So, all right. Yeah, I'll just give it one more shot. So we're taking the roof. Can I go to design, extras, accessories, roof accessories, and I'm assuming that the setting may be the default. So I'll just say OK. We can see that now it actually has moved. We do have some other stuff going on. So it's not, because the settings of these two things are not the same. Now I wonder if I eyedrop this and I inject it into that. Okay, so there is a setting that has to be done, but I think this did move a little bit. So, all right, so the basic idea is that you can control it by the, so take this and hide it. Here, you can control it by selecting the roof and modifying this. Now, the roof that I was modifying on plan was not this shape, so I might have even had the wrong roof. I was selecting this one up here.
Right.
So there might be, actually, so it would be this one. No, that's the accessory. I go to the arrow tool, object, hit the tab key. This is the roof. Okay, all right. And look at this. Here's the surfacer. It's starting with this point. So if I move this down, look at that. Okay, so now we can visualize this precisely. So I'll just take this to there. So now we can see that. So that actually now makes a lot of sense. I was manipulating a roof that was not the right one. When I select it and move this around, I can control where that is. And now let's, well, did it change?
It's still, you still might have to like redo it. It's
Uh-huh.
crazy.
Okay. All right. Well,
Yeah.
so that does give us hope that
Right.
that it is controllable by changing this, because it did seem to instantly do that. And so here's that's the surfacer. What do you call it? If I select not the object, but hit the tab key to select the roof, we can see this is where this is starting. So you could, I'll just move it a little bit and you can see how it's adjusting these things. So presumably that will work. I'm just not quite getting it. And maybe I'm looking at the wrong corner even. It might be this one that is affecting it. Okay. All right. So thank you for pointing that out, Morgan. That actually makes me hopeful that one could have enough control to finesse it. All right, so I know that Paul, let's see, we looked at Paul's stuff. Now Mark Hesse showed up, and Mark, you had said that you would share some things, but we didn't get in touch. So I don't know if you have something to show. Let me open up your line. And if you do have something to show, we can open it. Who else is on here? A bunch of you volunteered to share some things. We looked at Paul's. We obviously had Mark. Who else is, Tom. Tom had, yeah, let me open up Tom's line. Let me make you a panelist, because Tom had some interesting stuff. I believe it was Tom who had the, what is it? So I believe Tom had the model done with canvas. Yeah, that's an interesting one. Okay. So there we go, Tom. All right. So Tom, welcome.
Thank you.
So what version of Archicad are you running this in?
28.
28, okay. So I'm not gonna save the little changes or tweaks I was doing for, so this was in 27, and we got Paul's thing here, which I'll leave open. I'll just say I wanna open this. So you had the merge scans, the PLA, and the process for demonstration. I could open all of them, but what would be good to start with?
Probably the process. It has like just a simple outline of how I'm taking in walls from canvas, and then and I think you went over this a little bit on that other call.
So,
but just I'm kind of trying to get a process documented so when someone else is doing it, they don't have to reinvent it.
right, okay. So the focus of this particular project demonstration, not the project itself, but just of the demonstration or review, has to do with using Canvas, which is a tool, an app, a system for doing as-built surveys. You can take and I'll just briefly explain what I understand. You can take your phone or your iPad. It has to have a LiDAR device. So sort of all phones have cameras, but some have additional sensing for distances. So LiDAR is a type of radar that can sense how far away the wall is or the floor or the corner of things from your sensor. And you can walk around with this app and sort of essentially take a survey without having to take a tape measure or, a laser measuring thing, and it will intelligently, as you walk around, build up a 3D model, and then that 3D model can be processed by that company. Now, why? Let's see, where am I opening? So just told it to open something, and I'm just trying to see where this is. So this is Canvas. Oh, it's on the other screen. That's why I was a little confused here. Okay, so we've got this file open, and we'll just zoom in on it. So, so when this is brought in, it will bring in generic walls. So this is a wall that is just a simple wall, made of generic material that's 92 inches in height. So what is that, 7 feet 8 or something like that, and 4.5 inches thick. And then this is the type of wall that you're wanting it to become here. And when you convert it, you basically select all of the canvas walls, tell it to be this type of wall, but its reference line is going to be on the outside. And the reference line that you desire is going to be on the face of framing. So how do you get that done? If I drag a copy of this down and I say I want to eyedrop this wall and inject it into that, well, it flipped here. We could also, well, let's see if I inject it into that and then flip it here. Is it in the same place as it just was? Let me just put my mouse on this corner here. See, undo, undo. So right now, the point that I'm hovering over is the what do you call it? At the face of the wall, not the face of framing. And when I redo the two things, now it is at the face of the. Well, actually, it's not quite. Why do you have this inset? Do you have this set to be the? you don't have it set accurately here. Were you aware of that?
You can check and see if that's 5/8 gypsum wallboard or 1/2 inch, because it might be taking a 5. You might check and see if that for that style, like,
Right, okay, so it's set to be inset 1/2 inch manually, okay?
yeah. And what's the properties of the wall itself?
Yeah, so the wall, you can say that I want it to be not a 1/2 inch in from the outside. I want it to be on the core outside. And then make it 0. So now I'm saying, hey, just wherever that core is, put it there. And now you can see how it adjusted to that. Now, this wall, it says 4.2, I guess.
That's a 2x4 with
Two
gypsum
sides.
wallboard on each side.
And what is this? If we look at the composite, it's right now it's 5/8 here. That's
So-
why.
That's why.
So this 4.2, you know, if you had made it this 4.2 be 1/2 inch on each side, then we wouldn't have noticed the difference. But because it was 5/8 and you manually set 1/2 inch in, it wasn't, you know, it was a misalignment there. So that was one part of the way to do this. We should look at the Canvas file, source file, and then talk about this, because this is, it doesn't make as much sense in isolation, even though I understand, you know, what you had set up here. So if I go to the open, so we have here, so which one? Canvas. Okay, that's the
Merge
one.
scans. Yeah.
Merge scans. Okay, so I'll say open this.
So I think if you have one scan, it's just called scans. But if you have more than one scan, because you have a garage, you had to stop the scan and go do the garage. They can then combine them together.
Mm-hmm. So while we're doing that, Canvas, whoops, come on now. So canvas.io, you can see someone holding an iPad, and you can get these as-builts showing the person moving around with this, and this is what you get in the as-built, and the cost is very modest, you know, 29 cents a square foot to get an Archicad native file, slightly less if you're using Revit, but pretty much the same price there. So let's just take a look at the file that I'm opening up right now. So this is what they supply. It's an Archicad file created from a 3D scan that's been interpreted by a skilled operator. So someone who just does this all day for a living just takes these files and traces them with Archicad walls and puts in other cabinets and things like that to make it match. So if we look in 3D, what do we have? Well, it's a little hard to see this. I'm going to use the cutaway option and say, what do we have now? A little easier to sort of see what we've got. See, where would be the kitchen? It's on the other side, I think.
Yeah,
That's got more detail. No, that's the garage.
well, it's on the left-hand side to the back, on the other side of where the fireplace is. That fireplace is a room divider.
All right.
And
Well,
most of the kitchen stuff is cut off right now. So if you can flip the section cut there.
so reverse cutting plane.
There, that'll give you your kitchens.
Okay. All right. So this is what it produced. Now this is a native Archicad object. Now it's native in Archicad 25. It gets converted when we go to a later version to Archicad 26 or 27 library. And if you're in 28, it'll go to the 27 library. It will not go up to the new 28 ones. But it's certainly more than sufficient to create drawings and visualization as part of an as-built condition. You can see, you know, it looks reasonably clean there. But the issue is that this wall is just a generic wall that is, well, it says 4 7/8. Interesting. Okay. So that's an odd measurement there. And this one's 4.5. That's an exterior wall. So do you have any issues with that type of thing of figuring out what it's doing?
In this case, when the house was built, they were doing the exterior walls with 2x4s. So and what I would do is they typically default to 2x6s for exterior walls, unless you tell them on your sketches or in a note that use 2x4 for the exterior wall.
Mm-hmm.
Likewise, if you have plumbing walls and they're 2x6, you might want to put that on, note any kind of interior wall that might not be 2x4. But I think their scans will account for that, and they kind of can find 2x6 walls for you based on the scan.
Mm-hmm. Okay, you had something, actually you were with your diagram. So let's see, bring this up. I know I have a bunch of windows open. Let's see here. Okay, so you had shown some PDF here. All right, so this PDF this is from your hand sketch?
Yeah, so we take our hand sketch, which this is how we did it before without using canvas scanning. But we decided this is the first one, so we're going to do it like a normal as-built, and then we're going to go ahead and send our scan and see, make sure we have everything covered and our accuracy is there. All the circled ones pretty much are overall dimensions for rooms, and so I gave them the directions that use those as critical to make sure that they work, on the plans. Those should be transparent when they show up, so you can see the dimensions there. They're all.
Yeah, I wonder why they're so opaque, but I don't. I'm opening this up in Mac Preview. I don't know why it is. But anyway, all right. So this is what you routinely have done. You've done these measurements. Even though you were doing the scan, you wanted to make sure that some key measurements were correct. Would you go as far as this in future scans, or only do it in areas where you're specifically going to be opening up the walls? And
I think if we know the area we're working and we're not touching the other part, it doesn't really need to be that accurate. As accurate as they claim is good enough, and we don't really have a critical dimension in those areas. Mm-hmm. So I would just do dimensions that I know are critical, and maybe some overall ones to make sure the model's not really off something. But
okay, now Cinda, who was on earlier, and I don't know if you've ever met her, but she's does the Canvas IO. She was the first person, or one of the first people that I know who said, "Oh yeah, I'm trying this new thing, and can it work with Archicad?" And yeah, it does. So I've opened up your line, Cinda. She said, "I scanned 2 houses in an hour each on Tuesday. Should get the Archicad model back next week. They now charge an extra 3 cents a square foot for Archicad, but it's worth it. It's changed how we do work and charge our clients. They love it." Okay. So reading her notes, I usually make notes about what type of wall the exteriors are, as well as the plat of survey, so that they have the exterior dimensions. Then also a few overall interior dimensions to adjust it appropriately. Okay. And then I don't give them that many dimensions, just a few overalls. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So Cinda, I know you're still on. Your line is open if you want to.
Yeah, I'm here. We used to, work this exact same way as Tom, and we would put together these, drawings, and most people obviously don't have existing drawings. So we would walk in and, while my husband was photoing, I would do all the sketching of the existing layout. Then we would go through, the 2 of us together, measure everything, in 3 dimensions, and come up with sketches that look 10 times worse than what you've put together just there. And then we would go back and, draw it all in CAD or Archicad, whichever. And now we walk in, we will still take a few photos that are, you know, for our own record for existing, but we don't document nearly as much as we used to with photos, because one of the great things with Canvas now is that as soon as you're done scanning, you can see the photo model. So you don't even have to upload and pay them for anything. You can see the photo of what you just scanned, which is great because it's great for, you know, what was in that weird corner, you know. It's always a great point of reference. It's also great for contractors, you know, who we can just send them a link who haven't been out to the project yet, and they can see everything that's in the whole, you know, the whole house based on what you can scan. Now, obviously, it only scans what you can see. And so if you have a hoarder house, which we kind of dealt with on Tuesday, it's obviously going to scan what it can see. But the one thing that I really love is the people who are modeling it will model stuff that we never in a million years would, you know, bother modeling. Like I never would put a light switch on. But as you can see in that model that Tom showed, there's light switches and there's heat vents and there's, you know, they model the light fixtures. So they essentially model everything that is attached. They will take out all the furniture and, you know, all the other things that aren't fixed. But the level of detail that they can produce is pretty fantastic. And so, you know, I scanned 2 floors, you know, a basement, a first floor, and the full exterior in an hour probably. And that saved us so much time. It's just ridiculous. And before we left, I was able to say, look, here's what your house looks like, you know, in the dollhouse view. And she was just absolutely blown away. She's like, oh my God, just being able to see my house like this, already she had a better understanding. Because even though you live there, you don't always, you know, most people don't think spatially. And so she's like, oh, now I see the tub is on the other side of that closet. And that's why the closet has that weird shape. Like, you know, she didn't understand that until she actually could look at it. And I can share the link with it. And she's already texted me a couple of times saying that, you know, she and the kids have been playing around with it and you can, you know, adjust the cut line and, you know, so you can see all different things. And so then once they've done the model, you can switch back and forth between whether you want to see the photo view or you want to see the model view. So I am still not, I'm ashamed to say, 100% on Archicad. I'm far from it. So I'm going to wear a dunce cap and go stand in the corner, Eric, I know. But Canvas is really pushing us in that direction because now we get 3D models of every single project we do.
Fantastic.
So that's my sales pitch, and I don't even get a commission.
All right. Well, I'm not selling Archicad, so I don't get any money either. So.
Exactly. So, but it really has been a game changer for how we work. And it's pretty fantastic and worth every single penny. And I really like that there are real people. So, you know, one time I got a scan back and there was this weird kind of closet space under a roof and they didn't quite get the step down right. And I just said, hey, look, here's a part that doesn't look right. Look, here's my photos, here's my sketch. And they went back and they fixed it. And they're very good about only charging you what the actual square footage is, because that's how they work. So if you do exterior and interior, now it's included. They used to charge you extra for exterior, but now it's all included in that price. And so they give you an estimate of what they think the total is based on the square footage that they just scanned. But then they'll adjust it based on what it actually is when they finish the model. So
now I'm going to just bring up one other thing that during the call this morning so my other business, many of you know, is the Architect Marketing Institute, and we help architects like Mark and Cinda with marketing and sales, so to bring in more business. Now, one of the interesting things is people are talking about their tools, their working tools, and they're not just working in Archicad. one of the ones that was discussed today was an alternative to, what do you call it, to Canvas. I'm going to bring this up on screen. It is called Polycam. And if we just open this up here, you can see it's the same idea. It's doing a scan of this. They're creating a clean model, a floor plan, colored one, and here, that's interesting. It's visualizing it in a sort of odd way. I'm not even quite sure. Polycam. Now, I don't know whether they have, I'm just going to bring that up because it's at least worth knowing Polycam. Well, it may not have Archicad compatibility. I don't know. Polycam. True cross-platform 3D here. So you can see the same type of imagery, on your iPhone and whatever, cross-platform here. Anything in 3D, measure faster, design anywhere. So
They don't do Archicad though.
okay, so that would be a deal breaker, in terms of this here. Yeah, so but of course you contact them and say, hey, I'm an Archicad user, I'd like to look at it. Canvas is great. I think the person who was sharing it was saying that there was no fee for using thing to get the SketchUp model out, so there is that. So pricing here. Yeah, so it's a very small monthly fee to use it. Unlimited captures, 12 industry standard export formats. So what is that? So 3D viewing and editing here, 3D exports. Okay, so I guess one of the things of Canvas is that you are getting it in Archicad, and there is a human who's basically interpreting the 3D model and modeling it for you. So you get that. Now that brings back the whole thing of what I was starting to demonstrate earlier, which was the workflow here. And I don't think I demonstrated it quite clearly, but I had gone over this with Tom last week. So if we have, I'm just going to eyedrop this, and let's say that we have some walls here. Now I'm going to put in just some hotspots so we can see where the walls are. So this is those 2 points are with the X's are where the face of the wall is, but I want to turn this into this other wall type. And let's, so this wall type was actually, this was set at 4 5/8. Now these walls here were set at 4.5. So what we'll need to do is make sure that the walls that we're turning them into match the dimension that was supplied here. So what does that mean? I'll select this. I'll say I want to edit this composite profile. I'm going to duplicate this because I'll leave the 4.2 here, and I'll say 4.2 1/2 half-inch chip here. So this, I'm going to say these are 1/2 and 1/2. So this particular wall is going to be a 4.5 there. So if I select these walls and say that I'd like them to, I'd like to switch them to a composite that is going to be the, let's see, 4. So here's the 1/2-inch chip. You can see the first step is fine. It kept those hotspots you can see are still in the same place. But I know, Tom, you prefer when you're then doing drawings to have the framing line be the reference line. So this was the other thing that we need to understand, is that I can select these, and instead of switching it to core, in this case inside, let's say core inside, which moves things, you can see how the the X's are in that place. I don't want to move it. I want the blue line to move. So you go to the edit menu, reshape, edit menu, reference line and plane, modify wall reference line, and say, I would like to edit the reference line location without moving the wall itself. And it seemed to be that it was considering this the inside face here. Because of the way I drew it, I'll say core inside. Say OK. And you can see that the X is still there. The wall is not moved, but the reference lines now are in the right place. So if I'm doing some dimensioning, the reference line is where I want to do it. So that command, I'll just undo it. After switching the walls from simple to the composite, is you go to the edit menu, reference line and plane, modify wall reference line, and then edit reference line location, and you pick. And you might have to experiment, and some walls might flip, you know, from one side to the other. You might have to experiment a little bit, but just doing this, you'll see in a second the blue lines shift, but the walls don't move. And that allows you to get the dimensions that you want. Were there any other things in terms of the workflow that you think are worth noting?
Well, I did send some images of what their model, how it compared in plan view with our dimensions, just as it was just a visual check.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So if you wanted to pull that up, so there's a couple different PDFs. That's in our model only, and then this is an overlay. So if you zoom in there, all the red is what they gave us in Canvas, and then you can see that there's blue wall lines. That's where they actually are with, you know, when you consider dimensions and everything else.
Okay, so you were checking accuracy on that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So you might see some walls that are a little thicker. Maybe there's some segments. There's a few things like that, but for the most part, you know, it's close enough.
Okay, so you were comparing their model with your manual measurements.
That's right, and those blue dimensions are our wall locations, and that's to the outside. I have a whole nother type of dimension that goes from outside face of GWB, and by the way, that's half-inch GWB.
Yeah.
So that we, you know, apples to apples here.
Okay. Well, obviously you're taking it carefully, getting the scan, comparing it to your careful measurements, and saying, well, it's more than good enough for these areas where you're not doing the actual remodel. You just need to have some drawings. And then the areas where you have to be very specific, as Cinda said, you can tell them exactly certain key dimensions, and they'll make sure that it fits. And then, of course, as an Archicad user, you can do some other things to verify that you've got what you need.
Yeah, I think you've covered most everything there.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you for sharing that, and it's good to know that you can get a scan done. I mean, Cinda was talking about, you know, did 2 houses in an hour each, and obviously it is some time, but and there is a cost. So Cinda, if you're still on the line, I'm just curious, what would the cost have been to pay someone to go do the measurements and create the Archicad model, or would they not have done that? They would have just come back with measurements.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in theory, and I know that there are other folks who do this who, you know, will go and draw the model live on site while they're there measuring it.
Mm-hmm.
I just find that that's really hard to ask people to let me be in their house all day. And it's so much easier to, you know, even if we were field measuring, we would tell people, look, we're probably going to be there 3-4 hours because, you know, we're measuring, you know, not just horizontal dimensions of rooms, but we're measuring, you know, head heights and sill heights, and we're looking in every closet and whatever. So I would say normally for my husband and I to have the two of us go out there, photo, sketch, field measure, is about 4 hours. So that's 8 hours total between the two, for the two of us, and then come back, and one of us would then draw plans and elevations, which could potentially, if we were doing it in CAD or Archicad, either way, since we're still faster in CAD, probably another 6 to 10 hours, depending on how big the house is. So, I mean, that's a significant savings for our clients, and we just include that as part of our fee now. So if I just figure, okay, it's going to cost me $1,000, depending on the size of their house, obviously, but if it's going to cost me $1,000 to get everything scanned and have an existing 3D model, and we spend 1 hour on site, it's absolutely worth every penny.
Right, right.
Couple things to add. When you're scanning, they have really good tips on their website, videos of how to scan, first off, and how to preset and pre-walk what you're going to scan, so you can kind of get a clean scan one time through. And then the other thing too is what you use to scan. I used a iPhone 13 Pro with the LiDAR. It doesn't matter if it's a 13 or a 16 or an iPad, all the LiDARs are going to give you the same quality there. And I think I prefer the phone because I can do it with one hand as opposed to an iPad, which gives me a bigger screen, but it's bigger. So, maybe you need that second hand as you're going around and doing the scan.
Yeah,
Okay.
I agree. I've just, I actually on Tuesday, I did one on the iPad and one on the iPhone. And I like the bigger screen of the iPad, but it was much easier to use for the iPhone, especially because this house was cram packed full of stuff, and it was easier to reach over with one hand to scan stuff. The biggest thing I would suggest, and its biggest downfall, is as a LiDAR scanner, the light obviously plays a big impact to what you're scanning. So if you're going to be scanning basements and closets and all that kind of thing, ideally you want to make sure that you have the lights on first, because otherwise it'll say, hey, all of a sudden you're in the dark, I can't scan anymore, and it'll stop. Now they will merge the scans together if you have multiple scans, because we've had that happen before. Like, I thought there was enough light with our flashlight to scan in a crawl space, and there just wasn't. And so they're really good about making those adjustments. The other thing, honestly, the best time to scan an exterior is on a gray overcast day. If it's bright and sunny, it can be really difficult. And, when you're scanning back towards the sun. The other thing is it's not like using Matterport where, you can scan for thousands of feet away. Ideally, you want to have, and it'll say when you're scanning, hey, you're too close or too far. Its ideal range is like 7 to 10 feet. So for the most part, standing on the ground, we generally get up to the eave line of a second floor. But when I scan the full exterior, I will always upload them, like with my Plata survey and photos of my sketch notes and stuff. I will send them some overall photos of each side of the house too, so that they can see, this is what the roof line looks like from across the street, because it was too tall. I couldn't get the scan of it from there. And we always tell our clients, we're not climbing on ladders to do your scan. We're not doing any of that. It's what we can get from the ground. But they're really good, like I said, because there are, real people actually putting this together about, coordinating all of those things.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing those tips.
You're welcome.
So Tom, anything else to share here?
That's all I've got.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I know there's lots of other things we could talk about with your practice, but in terms of just having the canvas and the workflow, I think we've all learned some good tips and just seeing the potential of it. Now we have gone 2 hours, and I know that there were several other people who volunteered to share things, and I'm not quite sure whether to keep on going or just say, hey, let's come back next time. So let me see who else is still on the line. who had volunteered. So I know that Mark Hessa, your line has been open for a while. I don't know if you are near the computer, but we had talked about having you share your work. And oh, and I see,
Hi, Eric.
hey there, nice to see some other old friends like Ruben Ojeda from one of my very first clients back in Los Angeles in the mid 90s and still using Archicad. Fantastic. And Steve Privel as well, another LA person. So Mark, do you have some things? I don't think you sent me anything, at least not
Not
before.
yet. Yeah, I did start up a list of things that I thought would be of interest, but I'm trying to. I just met one little deadline yesterday, and I have got another one that's kind of large to get done for structural. So it's probably going to be a couple of weeks, but I'll try to
Maybe
touch
we'll
base
do it
with you.
next. Maybe we'll do it next month then.
Yeah,
It certainly, this was fascinating. We had, was it 3 or possibly 4 different projects? I guess we had Tom's with the canvas. We had Mark Benner's with the different exterior cladding and things like that. And we had Paul Adams with his remodel. Yeah, so we had 3. That was good. So Mark, we'll do it next time. I know just for all of you watching, Mark has been involved in facilities for hospitals as a primary thing that I know you for. You may do other things as well. So we're going to talk about some of the organizational, approaches for dealing with a project like that.
yeah, that sounds good.
Okay.
Also, it was interesting to see the canvas thing today. I'm working on a project. It's a personal project that I'm having to do remotely because it's a good day's drive away. And it's interesting that every step of the way I'm asking for video and photos from the contractors who are working on it. So it's kind of interesting to interpret everything through video and photographs and document it in the model. It's quite the challenge, but it's working out pretty well.
Okay. Well, look forward to learning a little bit more. In other words, think about what would be interesting to share. I know you have some NDAs, so you're limited on some things, but whatever you can share would be great. And I do see Steve Privel. I'm going to open up your line, Steve. So Steve's another of my original Archicad clients. So for those of you who don't know, I started with Archicad in 1989, version 3.42 on a Mac. I don't know, was it SE possibly? It's a little tiny box, and then got a 13-inch monitor and thought, wow, now we have space to do stuff. I moved to LA in '93, the end of '93, and there were some users already in LA, but I became the primary reseller in the LA area for about 15 years. And so, Steve, I've opened up your line. You want to say hello?
Yeah, hey, Eric. I don't know if this is harder or easier for you to do, kind of critique people on the fly, but it's very useful from this end, because there's lots of little things here and there that you might think are just normal, but not everybody knows, especially me. And it was great seeing your dinner.
It's interesting because I think you were one of the people in LA when I moved there at the end of '93, when I sort of announced that there would be a user group, and I got, I think, names from Graphisoft of who were users. You were one of the people already using Archicad back in that day, and yeah, I remember some of your work back from the '90s. So yeah, I love doing this. It's become more of a passion project because I've been focused more on the Architect Marketing Institute to make my living helping
Right.
architects with marketing and sales. But still, I love Archicad, and I can live and breathe it, like just in terms of looking at a project and at least finding interesting things to comment on and explain it in a way that, of course, is relatively clear. So
I've been using Archicad, for a really long time, and I got to kind of a place to where I plateaued out, I think, and then they kept introducing new features and stuff, and some of the cloning is still a mystery to me, and the properties and that sort of stuff. So I'm sure you'll see something in my project that you could comment on fairly easily that would probably make my life a lot easier. So if you do this again, yeah, maybe I can put together something.
All right. Well, if you can make it for next month, I don't have the date, but it'll be approximately 4 weeks from now. That would be great. Actually, I'm going to be traveling around the 24th, so it'd probably be the 22nd of May. Yeah, which actually that's 4 weeks from now. That would be a good date. So let's just see if that can work for you and for Mark. And if there's other people who want to volunteer, you can tell that I'm always very encouraging and positive, even when I say, "Oh, you could have done this differently." It's just here's some things to think about. Yeah, we can finish up for now. If any of you have questions about Archicad that you want my help on, I am starting to do some more Archicad training. There's a firm in LA that hired me recently to do some half days of training, and done a bunch of them, like 4 of them, and we're going to do another one next week. So, and then some of my other old clients came along and said, "Hey, I need some help. Can I have an hour of your time?" So I am available if you want to get this type of help. If you have a new staff member, things like that. It's my pleasure. I enjoy doing it, and I try to fit it in around my other commitments. So you can reach out to me at support@bobrow.com, and I'll be posting this recording on YouTube and also on the Archicad user website. So I think I'll just call it a day. So thank you all.
Thank you, Eric.
You're welcome. All right. So
Thank you.
yeah, thanks for joining the call. So yeah, I'll be back. And for those of you who are in the Archicad coaching program, I will take a little break and then I'll do another hour or so for anyone who has specific questions. You have the link. You should have a link for that call. All right. Take care, everybody.